want to talk a little New Orleans Pelicans. As Dame Lillard has demanded a trade out of Portland, in case you missed it. I believe, boys, help me if I have any, because I've followed this kind of tangentially. Dame wants to go to Miami, correct?
Yes.
But it's a trade, so he doesn't necessarily control that. Portland gets to choose. And so he could end up not in Miami. I already see, though, a lot of the mouthpieces pushing the Dame to Miami thing, as NBA mouthpieces are wont to do. They tend to kind of dance to the tune of the superstar, which makes sense. You got to have access, agents, all that. Like, I get it, right? But it's not a guarantee that he's going to Miami. And there was an article, where was this on? At Yardbarker yesterday, where Sports Illustrated's Jeff Smith writes, quote, the Clippers, the T-Wolves, the Pelicans, the Celtics, those are the teams off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure there were more. Those are the teams off the top of my head that called and said, asked to see what it would take to get Dame Lillard. And the Pelicans were brought up as maybe even potentially the best trade partner. There's a lot of different angles to this, but I'll start here. And I'll ask you, Mario. When I look at what it would take to get Dame, you know it's going to have to be Herb, probably in there, right? Probably going to have to be Trey Murphy. Why I don't know if it's like PTSD from the Dell Demps era, where you just were always in try to win now by getting an old guy moves, but like, why am I so hesitant to want to make that deal for one of the best players in the NBA that would probably make you a playoff team guaranteed immediately?
Yeah, that's fair. But my retort is, this is freaking Dame Lillard. Like, even in the best case scenario, the big trade that you're kind of referencing there, DeMarcus Cousins, if he stays healthy, maybe that would have been really good for the Pelicans. This could be more impactful than that. I would compare this to trading for like Dirk Nowitzki circa like 09, 10. Like, Dame is still arguably playing the best basketball of his career. He averaged 32 points a game, 7 assists per game last season. He had a 71-point game against the Rockets. And I love Trey and Herb as much as the next guy, but this is like a generational player might be selling it short. Like, this is one of the great point guards of all time, in my opinion. If you're able to swing the bat and get Damian Lillard, you do it.
And so no concern about him being 32 years old?
None.
At this time, as you looking to build towards the future?
Nah, you as the Pelicans got to give yourself credit as an organization developing, these guys that you would trade, Trey and Herb, and them being good enough to be able to get a guy like Damian Lillard. Like, those guys have great future. They both have all-star potential, which is why this trade makes sense for Portland, but it makes sense for the Pelicans too, because your title window like increases exponentially. It's like Kawhi going to the Raptors. Like, we'll see what happens going forward, but the impact he would have immediately would be massive.
Now, what about, doesn't make sense for Dame, though? Because that's the other part of this that I feel like I have a bit of PTSD from, is he clearly does not want to be here. And maybe it's not even about New Orleans as much. He clearly, though, wants to be in Miami. Are you at all worried about the specter of the disgruntled superstar?
Not really. He signed through 2 more years. Look at what the Raptors did. They took the same risk. Kawhi only played 1 year, but they won a championship. I say you take that risk.
Ooh, that's a hell of a gamble, though.
It is.
Look what's happened to the Raptors since.
It is. But again, Damian freaking Lillard is who we're talking about. Like, I think it will be worth it in the end. And who knows? If it has a good start, the vibes are good here. He respects C.J. McCollum a lot, who I think would stay on the team. I think Willie Green is respected around the league. I think you could convince him. And again, this is just a conversation we're having. A whole lot needs to happen for him to even get to New Orleans, but I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world.
All right, so we're talking, it'd be Dame, CJ, B.I., Zion, Valanciunas. That's your 5.
Yeah, Valanciunas might have to go out in the trade too, just for salary. And you might have to get Jurkic back, which is a downgrade there, but you still have Damian Lillard. Defensively, he's probably better than Jonas. But
all right, so then, like, what would your bench look like, considering what you'd have to give up? I mean,
you still have Dyson Daniels in there.
You still have Najee Marshall, who you just re-signed.
Yes, and you probably
and you'll have Jordan
would
Hawkins.
Kyra go maybe in a potential trade?
He seems to be rumored to kind of.
Hernan Gomez, would he maybe get elevated a little bit?
Hernan Gomez.
You got to get creative for sure, but at the end of the day, some of the young guys would take on much bigger roles. Like Dyson would have to play a lot more minutes. Hawkins would have to be thrown into the fire immediately. Najee Marshall would continue to play a huge role. And again, if you're
we forget about Jose.
And Jose, yeah. And
Jose.
if you're the Pelicans, you got to give yourself credit for, developing these players. But in the NBA, you need stars. If you really want to get to this next level, you probably eventually have to make a trade like this.
Yeah. I guess you're right. I just get nervous about just seeing it all blow up again and feeling like you traded some of your long-term development for short-term gains that didn't play out. But fear gets you nowhere.
But also, like, you have so many draft choices that you've just kind of held on to and you've had, and we're always like, hey, do something with those. Like, make those into something. Trade those for now. The future, that's great. But now also you have B.I., you have Zion, you have CJ, you have these players now that you can go win. You can go make a postseason run. Like, we understand winning an NBA championship is it's really far in the distance. We understand all that. But, like, go get a 4 seed.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree. Like, if they don't make the playoffs again, then it's, regime change talk has to take place. So, with that in mind, you'd probably lean towards this trade even more because you are kind of in do or die mode if you're David Griffin in this current makeup of the Pelicans.
Yeah, I just think it makes a lot of sense from Portland. Like, this reminds me a lot of when Anthony Davis was traded from the Pelicans. AD at the time had 1 year left on his contract, and Dame has 2. But he's pretty much trying to force himself to a certain situation, to a certain place while he's still under contract. But from Portland's point of view, I think a trade with the Pelicans would look really good in terms of what they're getting back. And I think the Timberwolves are a really good trade partner, too. This article mentions them. They have Karl Anthony Towns that they can give Portland. And then in Minnesota, you would have Dame Lillard. You would have Anthony Edwards. You would have Rudy Gobert, who can now focus on defense. In terms of what Portland can get back, I really think New Orleans and Minnesota are the best trade partners.
I got to be honest. I like New Orleans better for that reason. Like, yeah, they have Karl Anthony Towns, but you're trading Damian Lillard. You're clearly trying to build for the future. Yeah. You get 2 young guys and Herb Jones and Trey Murphy. Like, for what you're doing, New Orleans is probably better. And then in a New Orleans standpoint, this is perfect because what did we talk about all last year? Who's that guy that's going to take the big shot for New Orleans? You need that one guy. There is not a guy in the league, in my opinion, that I would rather take the last shot than Damian Lillard. I think it's perfect for both sides.
It is weird, though, because B.I.'s kind of made himself into that fourth quarter killer a bit after struggling with it for a while. Like,
he can be the fourth quarter killer, but last shot.
Final shot, there's not a better guy in the league.
Yikes, man.
And also, he has played, every year of his career, he's played at least 58 games outside of one.
Well,
in 21-22 when he only played 29. He's played 82 games, so every game for 3 years of his career, and he's gotten close to it 3 other times. Four other times, actually.
Just wait till he comes here, Jake. There's a first time for everything.